Hi, my name is Simone, and today is January 20th, 2021, which is weird to think about considering how fucking weird a year 2020 it was. I know it's gone, and nearly a full month has gone by in this new year, and I've still barely accepted the fact that it's not 2020 anymore. So what is this anyway? So what's the point of this movie of sorts? Documentary? It's barely a documentary. Just video, I guess. It's the best way to describe it. Because it is a video. Yeah, I'm actually gonna switch out my choker for a necklace. I've always kind of had a shit sleep schedule, but, well, with being out of hospital, for just under a month at this point, it's, I suppose, in my mind, about time I get my life back together. I really don't think this jacket works with this outfit. I think ultimately that it's gonna be a slow process, and I'm gonna mess up a lot. However, I have to try, and the past few days I've been really struggling to just like sleep, you know? Why does nothing work with this pants? I've not been getting much sleep because I'm trying to get myself to wake up early, despite the fact that I am falling asleep at unpleasantly late hours. You know, I fell asleep at 4 last night after 4 hours in bed, and I just couldn't, like, I just physically could not make my brain go to sleep. It was, oops, that's unfortunate. I don't know if this is gonna work. I truly don't. I've got to try because, again, getting my life together would be super awesome. Fuck, I need to stop bopping that microphone. What time is it? Alexa, what time is it?
The time is 3:56 p.m.
Alright, so it's just before 4 p.m. So ideally, I will be in bed in 8 hours. That's the goal. Hopefully I will be asleep within 9. And if I can pull that off, I think I will have succeeded. To begin with my foolproof plan, and it has to be foolproof because I'm kind of stupid. At this point, I appear to be going for a nice leisurely walk. So, what is the purpose of my walk? Because we need a purpose, like narratively speaking. There needs to be a reason to do the things we're doing. And what are those reasons? I need to tire myself out one way or another. And I think the way to do that, both mentally and physically, is to do things. Which is, I know, a foreign concept. I don't know, the past month I have been pretty inactive in terms of just doing anything other than chilling on Instagram or playing games all day. Yeah, I don't know, I hate feeling like my days are purposeless. I hate feeling like there's not much reason to be doing the things I'm doing. You know, I suppose it's like fucking crows, man. I suppose it's hard to make yourself... Why am I going towards the crows? Do those crows like ever shut up? Jesus. I'm trying to do a monologue here. What's your damage? This must be fucking awful to watch. I, in theory, have to gather about as much footage as I have time walking. I fucking hate crows. You know what? I'm stand by that. Holy shit. Whoa. There's so fucking many. But they're not like going in one particular direction. They're all like... Oh, now there's a train. I love interruptions. Jesus. What the fucking hell was I talking about? I don't know, I think it was just like, it's hard to do things to make your life better when you feel like in a lot of ways your life doesn't have much purpose. I hadn't worked on anything creative until like the last week. I hadn't really worked on any film stuff since, like November, something like that. Since my mental health got like really bad. And I guess like I worked on writing stuff, but writing for me always feels more work than creativity, if that makes sense. Like it just, in my head, there's just something about writing that it doesn't come as naturally to me. And I suppose that's just because in my head anyway, I'm built for film. It's what I'm good at, video. With writing, especially writing that's just writing for the sake of writing, rather than for the sake of a script or something like that, it's just like, in my head, it's just, I don't know, it's tough, you know? Because you're creating that entire world in your head, and you need to create it in the heads of the readers as well. And for me that's so hard, because the way I see the world is very functional, you know? Like I pay attention to the specific things that are important at any given time, you know? Like I know when I was in hospital, I'd walk around and I'd go to the same rooms like multiple times, and I'd notice things in the rooms that I'd been in like 2-3 times before that I just completely didn't know were there. You know, there were paintings that I walked past every day for like the first 2 weeks that I just did not see until I I don't know, it's like when my mind's able to wander, I suppose I can notice the little details more vividly. Whereas right now, like all I really care about is talking. Like that's where my mind is right now. All my mental bandwidth is on talking and walking and occasionally looking at the camera to make sure I'm not recording something completely useless. I love making things. I love it so much, but I think fundamentally in my head it does feel like work. And when I write a story, I need to be in the specific right headspace in order to write for the character properly. And then there's drafting and all this stuff that's just, I'm so unpredictable in my moods that it's like, how can I ever hope to write something completely from the perspective of a stable character? You kind of have your character change constantly without story reasons. You know, you can't just randomly change the way your character talks in the middle of a chapter, and it's just I love writing and I love the story I was working on so bad, and I want to find a way to make that work, but I just think despite the fact that writing does make it so much easier than, for example, if I was trying to shoot this movie in real life, it just wouldn't be possible with my means right now, even if we weren't in a pandemic. That's the thing, you know? But books, they're just not my medium. And that's interesting to me, you know? How big of a difference medium makes. Because people seem to think that you can just copy the direct events of a book into a movie, but that's not how it works. There's a limited amount of time you can have in a movie. You can't take 5 minutes to examine the room. You can't use voiceover just to explain what the characters are thinking. You need to a certain extent, make that actually flow narratively. You know, you need to show it. I don't know, that's it's the issue, you know? mediums are different, or media, I suppose. Different different media, just like they have different requirements in terms of what makes a good story. And you know, there's stuff like with writing, if I was writing a script, I'd be much more inclined to make dialogue or something super obvious to explain something rather than just using visual storytelling. Because despite the fact that writing is hard for me because of what I've learned in film writing, even, you know, novel style, show not tell is still valid there. It's just in a different sort of way. I feel like I'm rambling. I went on a walk, I think it was 2 days ago. I took some pictures around here, and it's like, I haven't done photography really since the start of 2018, and I don't know if that's directly correlated with the fact that I came out around that time, and the fact that at that time I suddenly became so much more conscious of how I was being perceived. Because like, you have to be, it's what it's about, I suppose. Yeah, I guess it's like, I've always loved taking photos and lining up shots and stuff and just capturing some form of reality. You know, that's ultimately what storytelling is. Even if it's a faux reality, you are capturing a reality, and that's kind of magical in its own way, you know? I suppose depending on the medium, it varies in terms of how you are creating. Let's say a vlog, that's directly capturing life. I'm sure you're molding it into something more cohesive for the sake of, you know, time and sort of enjoyment, but like ultimately that is life. Whereas like in animation, you're just like creating to some extent or another every aspect of that world, you know, and that's the interesting thing. I find it so much more interesting to create a narrative world rather than a physical one, in terms of like, and there's some children looking at me right now, but I don't really care. I made this documentary 2 years ago about my PE teacher. Half of what was said in it was complete nonsense, but I suppose the goal of it was not to convey reality. It was to use reality to construct this fictional story, which was, I don't know, not completely fictional, because there was like so many elements of it that were just real, but you know, it's like hyper real. In reality, that PE teacher wasn't actually teaching the other teachers how to be teachers. He wasn't, I don't know, it's like you lose the context and the nuance of real life in the way that things were told, but that's the point of getting a laugh, you know? That was the purpose they served in the story. The reality of the school, the reality of the teachers, I didn't invent my teachers, I didn't give them new characters. They were themselves in some capacity. The only issue is just that they weren't fully themselves. And it was this, I really liked the sort of balance between the fact that so much of it wasn't real, but so much of it was. And there was this like sort of almost perfect medium where in some ways a third-party observer wouldn't, you know, really fully know what was a joke and what wasn't, but the core focus of the film, which was, you know, sort of digging deep into the psyche of the character, that no matter what context you had specifically, you could understand that, and that's like a really great thing, I think. I think a lot of what was great about that film, that documentary, happened by chance and was in not no way, but in very small part, I was responsible for. I might have like sort of moved the teachers in a certain direction, but I didn't make them say what they said. You know, I didn't tell them what to say. I didn't script anything. I had questions, some of which were specifically designed to get specific reactions, but so much of it I didn't use because the stuff that I found actually worked. And this is something I found in another documentary, how important questions were. I learned a lot about how your expectations and the outcome are so wildly different, and how that's just not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing that your expectations don't match reality, because in a lot of ways reality isn't as great as it's all made out to be, you know? What the fuck, that is nothing. I got distracted by my shot, and no. Because ultimately what matters is not what you want to make. It matters what you did make, what you created. And fundamentally, the film you envision does not exist outside of your head. So trying to hold it to the standard that exists in your head it's not just like pointless, it's also counterintuitive to actually appreciate your work for what it is. Because like, I suppose something I've thought about a lot is the fact that I've been writing the story that I worked on a lot in hospital. I first came up with that idea sometime in 2016. The story evolved so much over the years, but aside from in one particular draft, like the really fundamentally story that existed in my head. It existed in my notes and my plot line, but it didn't exist as a story. Even though the words I put on the page, I, in a lot of ways, have been proud of, there's no product, nothing for people to consume as a full piece. And that's really tragic, because the ideas I had for the ending and stuff like that over the years, some of them have been really great, but nobody's really gotten to experience them. Because I just kept starting over, because I'm never going to be happy with my writing, I think. And because honestly, I actually don't know if I can physically train myself to be a good writer, you know, in terms of narrative, because I don't read many books. I've been reading a bit more lately, you know? I've read a lot more than I have for like years. But I suppose the fundamental thing is just that media in the form of video is my reference for how to tell a story in so many different ways that I could train myself to be a great novel writer, but I don't think I should, because that's fundamentally not what I want to be. I want to tell that story, but I don't want to tell it in that form. I think that's the thing about this, what I'm making here. The form of this sort of podcast style, like documentary thingy, is like, it's ultimately the right way to tell this story. As simple of a story as it is, it's me trying to wear myself out enough that I will fall asleep. The way I see it, there's really it's just not engaging to hear a retelling of what happened, because it's not interesting. It's not this cool plot line. It's not a triumph over something. Not really, you know. Beyond like a single sentence descriptor, there's not much about the story that would really make sense in terms of words. But bringing you on this journey as I go through it, if it's even the right use of the journey, that's the priority. Maybe I'm talking a bit too definitively for my own good, but I have been making things creatively literally all my life. I didn't stop. I've changed media a few times, but ultimately I've always told stories. You know, for a lot of my life, I did want to just be a writer, and at certain points I wanted to be an artist. And somewhere along the way, maybe like 10, 11, I realized I wanted to do some sort of film. And I've made so many different things, right? And I suppose I just have a lot of practice learning what works and what doesn't. And I don't know everything. I don't know how to tell the perfect story. I make bad things a lot of the time, but I do have experience making things. I just think ultimately everyone's view of the world is valid. Maybe I'm wrong about how to tell a good story. Maybe there is no difference between telling a story over around a fire and, you know, making a movie. Maybe I'm wrong, and I don't think I am, because those are two very, very different things, and I think most people would agree with me that those are two different things. But my opinions are as valid as yours, because they're opinions, and opinions are not fact. And the beautiful thing about fact is a matter of opinion. And my opinion is, all of this does not matter. It is a means to an end. A movie is a means to end to tell a story. And telling a story with words around a fire, or talking to a bunch of friends on the fucking phone or whatever. You know, ultimately it's about telling a story. If you clip together a bunch of pretty photos or video clips, you're telling a story. It might not be a very deep one. It might be. It depends on what you're showing. But ultimately it's a story, because the way I see it, what is life but a bunch of stories? What is life but a collection of memories? Which is funny, because I have terrible memory, which anyone who knows me will attest to. I wish I had just fantastic memory. I wish I could remember the happy moments in my life. and forget the sad ones. But as it happens, I forget most things and just remember really vivid memories. And I lose most of everything else, you know? As memories go, feelings are the most strong things that you remember. I mean, I don't know if that's scientifically accurate, but for me, even if you don't remember the details, you remember how something made you feel. I don't know. I remember how it felt to be in hospital and to be too scared to talk to people. I don't remember the thoughts I had in my head at that time, but I remember that feeling, that fear. You know, I remember things not being right. I remember not being able to bring myself to do something that I wanted to do. And that's the thing about feelings, you know? They're not logical. But that's the thing, right? What is logic anyway? Logic's just a way of seeing things, a way of making decisions based on things you can... It's like just having good reasons, you know? I don't know, maybe it's silly to say, but a lot of the time, I don't think logic is more valid than feelings. Logic is a beautiful thing because it can shape our perspectives and our perception. We can figure out logically a set of actions that will hurt the least amount of people. We can't logically define morals and what's right and wrong. Like, fundamentally, there will always be a level of just instinct and feelings defining that. Like, that's okay. Because, and maybe this is a little bit cliche, logic is maths. There is right and wrong. There's no in between. There's no perception. You know, when you look inside a computer, there's ones and zeros dictating every single bit of its system. Whereas, I mean, there's no code in our heads telling us how to feel. Unless you believe we're living in a simulation. You know, what's logical about a story? You know, stories don't exist to convey information. Not really. They exist to tell a story, to bring people together, to share our feelings. You know, people don't say, oh, people shot each other in fucking war. One side won. Sure, there is some framing where the facts are the priority, you know? Facts, you know? See, I'm contradicting myself where it's like an attempt at a factual recount of what happened. But at the end of the day, it is all stories. It is all our beliefs. Facts are boring. People who try to tell facts with no storytelling, it's not interesting. Fundamentally, most of what engages us is storytelling in one way or another. Understanding how a car works, it's the story of that motor. It's the story of how that car was created, how a physical object came to be in our world, and how it came to revolutionize that world. Like, I'm surrounded by roads, you know? Surrounded by these hunks of steel and rubber and fucking electricity and gas. There's a story and everything. I think for me that's why school is so unengaging, you know, because I think deep down who I am, what I am is a storyteller. It sounds a little up my own ass to say, but it's how I feel. You know, you can add as many word problems to your maths equation as possible, but it doesn't change the fact that you're just hiding numbers behind a facade. And I suppose that is the difference between trying to solve the puzzles of coding and just doing maths homework. They're so different to me because there's a reason I need to do this programming. There's an end goal. There's a story in creating a game, I guess. The truth is, I don't know if this is going to make a very good story because I am fallible. There's no perfect formula to success. Even in something like the YouTube algorithm, you can find ways to game the system, but fundamentally so much of it is just up to essentially random chance and coincidence. And that's weird and hard to wrap your head around and hard to, I suppose, accept most of all. But you do have to accept it, I think. Accept that you'll make mistakes, you'll make bad things, and you'll make good things. And you'll tell stories you're proud of. You'll make a documentary in fucking 4th year that nearly 2 years on, you still frame like almost every creative work you do through the lens of. Every mistake, people like to say, teaches us a lesson. And I suppose for me, the way I see it is every piece of art you make teaches you how to make better art. You can choose whether or not you want to listen to the lessons it tries to teach you. But it does teach you lessons. You know, maybe not the lessons you want. Maybe not the lessons the people consuming your art want. Maybe a lesson you learn from making your film, from making your piece of art, is how to make another one cheaper, or how to make your next one more commercially successful. Because you do learn lessons, even if the lessons, some might argue, are not good ones. I don't know, I've been talking here for like an hour, been on a walk for 45 odd minutes. I don't know, have I made any sense at all? Very possible, very possibly not. You know, it's gotten pretty dark since I came out here, and I have no idea how this can fit into the narrative of trying to fix my sleep schedule. I suppose it's related in that this is the method through which I am trying to tire myself out. It's working to some extent. Not that I wasn't already tired today, but I don't know. It is, in a lot of ways, dog. In a lot of ways, it's a story of telling stories, because I didn't come out here to talk about storytelling. I came out here to talk about my sleep schedule. I suppose this is much more interesting, so I kind of veered here. I don't know. You know, I really don't. I suppose the truth is you can make a story out of everything. Stories aren't inherent. Stories are a way you describe memories, or a way you describe reality. They're not perfect, they're not infallible, but you can ultimately make a story about anything, because people literally have. And you know what? Maybe that story is incoherent as hell. Maybe that story is top 10 best ways to electrocute your friends, but it is a story. So I suppose what I'm saying is everything's a story. Everything's a story if you make it a story, you know? Everything can be a lesson to learn if you want to learn a lesson from it. I mean, that's the thing, right? You talk to kids about what's the moral of the story. Stories don't have morals. Stories have events, they have emotions, they have consequences, both inside the narrative and outside. But fundamentally, stories don't have morals, because stories are stories. They don't have this attached moral element. Yes, they can be designed to say a certain thing, but it doesn't mean they do. It doesn't mean they succeed. Like, yes, a story may be designed to teach a child a lesson, but you can take the complete wrong lesson from that story, and it is no less valid, because I suppose the way I see it, what we as an audience take from a story is sort of the most important part. It's the most infallible part, in a way. There's no objective criticism of art, because there is no objective reality of the art. The piece exists, yes, but every single person is bringing their own individual biases into that piece, and that's the beauty of it, you know? I can read a book about frickin' the culture of some town in Oklahoma, talking about The Outsiders, by the way, and I can see that as an example of just the normalized violence between siblings. You know, that's what I saw at the time. I saw Daryl in that book as abusive, because at some point he hits Ponyboy, I think his name is. I haven't read that book since third year. But like, other people see that as a commentary on gangs, or it's just a story about friendship. And hell, I don't know, honestly, how I'd see it if I tried to watch it again or read it again or whatever. But that is the thing. I'm not wrong for seeing abuse of like the relationship with violence. I'm not wrong for thinking that. That's my take. That's the way I saw it. That's the way I perceived the art. That's the way I absorbed the story. And that's how the story went from a piece of art, in whatever form you consumed it, a book or a movie, then it became the story I told myself. And I suppose this is a story about fixing my sleep schedule by doing a bunch of physical and mental exertion. Do you take this as a guide to how to improve yourself, how to learn to sleep better? Or do you take this as a lesson in how to tell a good story? I hope not. I don't know if it's gonna be great, and I highly doubt it. Is it a lesson in pushing through despite the things going on in your head? Is it a lesson about, I dropped my key. Is it a story about, I suppose, is it just something you listen to? Is it gonna go in one ear and come out the next with leaving no impact on you? And that's okay. I don't need the things I create to resonate with you, and no matter what I intend for this film to become, or what I intended when I left my house, what I intend for it to be now, ultimately, you've experienced what I've created. There really isn't a moral to this movie. It's just gonna end right now. You're just gonna think it's going really well, and then